Bienvenidos a Colombia Antigua. La historia es para compartirla sin egoísmo. Es por eso que cada video tiene el enlace y la información de dónde fue descargado. Esperamos que los videos y la información sean útiles para usted.
Ever since man first set eyes on gold, he's been fascinated by this glistening metal. He soon learned to work it, fashioning it into objects both useful and ornamental. This helmet and vase date back to the 27th century BC. They come from Sumer, as does this bull's head. Here we see a figure by the ancient inhabitants of Turkey. The most accomplished of early goldsmiths were those of Egypt. Tutankhamun's sarcophagus is a masterpiece of their art, as are these fingertips and statues of deities. This strange figure is of ancient Russian origin. This mask is Greek. It comes from Crete, as does this bull's head. Here we have a Buddha from Japan, quite similar to one of Chinese origin. After serving ritual and ornamental purposes, gold was put to commercial use in the form of coins. During the 15th century, Byzantine and Italian painters adopted gold leaf as the background for religious scenes. In 18th century Cusco, it served a similar purpose. The lavish use of gold leaf in Spanish colonies is nowhere more evident than in the Jesuit church in Quito. Only the floor was left ungilded. Gold highlights polychromed images set on gilded altars in gold-encrusted niches. Churches were not the only Spanish colonial buildings with gold embellishments. Theaters and palaces were abundantly gilded, as were their furnishings. It is said that Simón Bolívar slept in this bed on a visit he made to Cusco. It is now in that city's museum. Today, gold is little used in art. Its appearance in Eduardo Ramirez Villamizar's mural for the Bank of Bogotá constitutes a rare exception. Medieval alchemists engaged in a never-ending search for the so-called philosopher's stone, an imaginary substance purported to have power to transmute base metals into gold. Their efforts were in vain, but nonetheless constitute the beginnings of modern chemistry. On arriving in the New World, Columbus was surprised and delighted by the solid gold gifts bestowed on him by the natives. His immediate concern was to learn the source of the gold. The Spaniards imposed Catholicism on the Indians. Idols were destroyed in the name of Christianity. Jewelry, images, everything was melted down into bullion for shipping to Spain. When it arrived there, all sorts of legends arose about the land whence it came. Indian chiefs were said to be smeared with resin and then dusted with gold, turning them into living statues. Thereafter, they were taken to a sacred lake where they were washed of this coating and stripped of their golden ornaments, which sank beneath the waters. The lake has been identified as one known as Guatavita, located in Colombia. All kinds of efforts have been made to recover the treasures that are supposed to lie in its depths. The story of El Dorado, the gilded man, spread throughout Europe, and pirates and adventurers of all nations began to invade America seeking where he was to be found. Among the adventurers was Sir Walter Raleigh, who wrote a book about his unsuccessful attempt to reach the land of El Dorado. Typical of the myths that then circulated are these drawings in which Theodore de Bry depicts the Iwaipanoma Indians. The European powers were soon warring with one another for the gold of America. The conflict spread to the native peoples, raging between Indians who had submitted to outside domination and those who rose in rebellion against it. To satisfy the Spaniards' thirst for gold, the Indians poured molten gold into the conquistadors' mouths. All were terrified of firearms and still more so of horses, those unknown monsters from beyond the sea on which the conquistadors rode. Indians were slaughtered by the thousands. So many were killed that later, when the Spaniards needed labor for the gold mines, they were forced to import slaves from Africa. Inca civilization centered around Machu Picchu. Chan Chan, the capital of the Peruvian kingdom of Chimor, fell before its forces. But Inca civilization, like that of the Aztecs and Mayans, fell prey to Spanish greed. The conquistadors were not in the least impressed by the delicate textiles, the brilliant ceramics, and the intricate stone carvings of the native peoples. These marvelous polychrome pieces were shattered to get at their gold ornamentation. The legend of El Dorado took on an air of reality as the Spaniards advanced in their conquests. They came upon chiefs and priests whose regalia, masks, pectorals, tunics, and gloves, were entirely made of gold. Some articles were inlaid with precious stones. Few escaped the avarice of the European adventurers. Fortunately, some were buried in the earth and have recently been recovered. Terracotta urns ornamented with gold were sometimes used for burials. Chiefs were interred with all their gold adornments, befitting their importance for use in the afterlife. This tomb in Costa Rica gives a good idea of Central American burial practices. Costa Rica is particularly rich in tombs containing gold ornaments. A fine collection can be seen in the Central Bank in San Jose. Central American goldsmiths were highly skilled in working the metal. Sheets were hammered into the thinness of paper. Extraordinary figurines of animals were made by the difficult lost wax method. It would be impossible to calculate the value of a collection such as the one so jealously guarded in these vaults. While the metal could be weighed, the workmanship is beyond price. The most important of all collections of pre-Columbian gold objects is the one in the Gold Museum of the Bank of the Republic in Bogota. Thousands of items of all sizes and shapes form a magnificent public display. This is where the real El Dorado of today lies. There were 6 main Indian civilizations in what is now Colombia. These examples of the Tairona culture, which flourished in the northern mountain region, have an exuberantly Baroque quality. The feather headdresses are reminiscent of Oriental art. The Calima culture extended along the Pacific coast. The Calimas were excellent goldsmiths, as one can observe from the elaborate repoussé decoration of these huge pectorals. Design was highly imaginative, and at times surprisingly modern in effect. The ornaments worn by warriors were little short of amazing. One wonders what could have surprised their Spanish adversaries more, the ferocity of their glances or the gold with which they were laden. The Calimas also made remarkable hollowed-out figures, delicate receptacles of human or animal design. The Tolima culture was based in southern Colombia. Gold was hammered into sheets out of which objects of simple design were cut. Frequently, the form was that of a bat. Winged creatures with fish-like bodies and figures half human, half animal are also characteristic of Tolima culture. The Sinu culture spread along the Caribbean coast of Colombia. These nose rings are clear proof that the Sinus were master artists in filigree. They also showed great imagination in their depictions of animals. The Muisca or Chibcha culture flourished in the center of Colombia. Muisca technique, as evidenced in pectorals and other ornaments, was highly advanced. Modern-looking designs resemble those of the Calimas. Hanging discs gave life to this ornament, and here a row of little figures contrasts pleasingly with the abstract base on which they rest. Like Indians of other cultures, the Muiscas fused gold with copper, producing an alloy which is redder and much stronger than pure gold. The most characteristic of Muisca ornaments was the tunjo, a triangular plaque with raised borders suggestive of human veins. Some figures recall soldiers of the French Revolution. This one might be Napoleon himself. The delicate work of which the Muiscas were capable is evidenced by this filigree hammock. It took highly developed technique and imagination to produce these fragile figures. This Muisca raft with its crew is one of the Gold Museum's greatest treasures, and was perhaps the raft which carried the Golden Chief to the center of the lake. The Quimbaya style is completely different. The Quimbayas, who lived in eastern Colombia, had the most highly developed technique of all. The Quimbayas were not craftsmen, but artists, true sculptors in gold. The simplicity and realism with which the human figure is captured in this piece recall classic art. The high finish and modern lines of these vessels are a cause for never-ending wonder. Thousands of gold objects still lie buried in the ground. Tomb robbers, known as guaqueros, continue to unearth treasures which escape being melted into ingots. Today, gold is valued by the ounce and serves as a monetary reserve. Its price has steadily risen owing to its scarcity. Someone has calculated that if all the gold in the world were fused into a single block, it would form a cube measuring less than 50 feet in each direction. In the space age, new roles have been found for gold. The umbilical cord which connects the astronauts with their vehicles is gold-plated, as are other delicate pieces of apparatus to repel the extreme heat in space. Gold accompanied man when he first set foot on the moon. The visors of the astronauts' helmets were impregnated with gold, for only that metal could be rendered sufficiently transparent to permit vision and at the same time resist the intense heat of the sun on the moon's surface. Gold is gold today as in the past, but man has a new conception of its uses. The satellites now circling the Earth bear little or no resemblance in shape to ancient idols, but they have as much need of gold as did the pre-Columbian deities. It's a necessary component of instruments for exploring our Earth and other planets. Pure gold was used for a recording of our world's languages placed aboard space probes.
Paz e felicidade a todos. Bonjour tout le monde.
Shalom. Hola y saludos a todos. Salvete quicunque estis. Shalom.
Hartelijke groeten aan iedereen.
Odigiano.
Chân thành gửi tới các bạn lời chào thân hữu.
Tanti auguri e saluti.
Želimo vam sve najlepše sa naše planete.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Pioneer 10 has already escaped from the solar system. It carries a gold plaque engraved with information about our planet. It may journey forever through the void. Someday, however, an extraterrestrial being may come upon one of these objects. If he does so, will he come to the conclusion that gold abounded on planet Earth? It might be the beginning of a new cosmic legend of El Dorado.